Hello. All right. Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Braving the NAB Show 2023 crowds, which I got to tell you, relative to last year, it's very encouraging to see all these bodies out here because it's a good sign that, especially for this economy that we're all suffering through, except this guy, and he's going to talk about that. It's good to see, some life coming back to the industry after what I consider to be a very quiet winter. So before we begin, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Mike Nichols. I'm the VP of Sales and Marketing for Adorama Rental Company. You may have seen some of the Adorama branding around here and in CineCentral Hall, where we are one of the premier sponsors, and there's a ton of great workshops happening over there. So if you get a chance, head over to the Central Hall, look for CineCentral. You'll see us. There'll be tons of cool things. Come say hello. And I'm going to turn the introductions over to the gentleman to my left.
Yep, I'm Eric DeHaven, and I'm a CEO of DeHaven Camera. We're a boutique rental house in LA that specializes in like music videos, indie features, commercials, more short-term projects, some feature stuff. So family-run, independent company, so kind of on the other side of what these guys are doing.
So what we're going to talk about today is really the rental house dynamic, and we have two great representations of what a rental house scale could look like. Adorama, we are one location, but we're more suited in terms of scale and scope. Adorama Rental is to the longer form customer, feature films, television. That's not to say we don't love and value the short-term commercial, documentarian, independent film. We love all of that, but we're scaled very differently, the two companies. And it's good to get a perspective of what the relationship could look like between a house like Adorama Rental and DeHaven Camera, which is, you're going to get different types of value, but equal value from both types of relationships. So we'll start with what we do, what Adorama Rental Company does. And we've recently launched a division called Arc Cinema, which is, just to give you a little history about Adorama Rental as a company, we started very much like DeHaven Camera in that we were focused on that independent filmmaker, the professional photographer, the lone wolf sort of creator, if you will. And over the years, the customer base and the growth of the company led us to say, well, I think there needs to be a path forward so that we can address larger scale productions. Television, feature films, and that. But we wanted to do it in a way where we kept that DNA of the type of company that we started as, and we didn't alienate that customer, so that no matter the size or scale of the production, you're going to feel comfortable walking into the facility. And in June of this year, we're going to go officially live with Arc Cinema, which is the sort of white glove boutique corridor for that feature film, television show, larger scale production that may not have historically associated Adorama Rental Company with that type of service and production. So talking about service, the dynamic of a relationship between you all and the rental house is, it's what makes us do what we want to do. We're on the vendor sort of services side, but we're filmmakers. And I think part of the importance of having filmmakers being your partners on the vendor side is that we understand the needs and the urgency and all of those things that go into production that maybe your van rental or your jib rental company. Not to say that those vendors aren't great, but if you're not approaching the vendor perspective as a filmmaker and a partner, I think you're going to get a level of service that's not quite meeting the needs and urgency of your production. So no matter the scale or scope of the jobs that we entertain, we want to be there for you as a partner. And I think Eric can speak to, his company's experience in that dynamic a lot more because he's a creator himself. Yeah. He's an accomplished cinematographer. And, to have that mentality as a vendor, it's so important. And you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're touching on the reason why we actually started our company. So it's my wife and I, we saw a lot of, one of the things I always saw with the rental house was I would go in, some kid would push a bunch of cases at me and walk away. And, that was fine when we were shooting on 2 film cameras, 1 set of lenses. There was no complexity of configuration. now what I'm seeing is ACs are walking in, they're like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, what does this all plug in? And there's monitors everywhere. So we really looked at this niche of like a very high technology place where you can come in. We set up the gear for you. So when you walk into our shop, your camera's set up waiting for you. Like, we've made sure that all of the things that your producer, you're the DP, you asked for this list, your producer got the list wrong, sent it to us. We looked at it and went, okay, this isn't going to work with that. You need this. We're going to work back and forth with your team to make sure that you have all the compatibility correct. When you get there, it's going to work. We're going to guarantee it. And then we're going to work with your prep team to make sure that everything's the way that you want it. You've got the bespoke this and that. You've got these little things that you want to make it work good for you. And so I saw that piece missing in the industry. We also saw the piece missing that we were not serving a lot of communities. My wife is African American. We saw that women filmmakers were getting pushed out of houses. Black filmmakers were getting pushed out, of people of color. And so we saw an ability to create a house that was a lot more welcoming, knowledge based. So you come in, we're not going to look down upon you. Oh, you don't know about the new area? There's a great scene in Babylon where the kid's like spinning his pencil, and he's like, oh, you don't have the 3572. So we're not going to do that. We're going to welcome you in, and we're going to teach you. We teach classes. We do, look, you're the first time you've ever used a camera. Let us know at prep, and we'll give you an instructor, one of our team who's super knowledgeable, to help you do that process. So it was something we saw as a whole in the market that we really tried to fill and give access to people who maybe didn't have gear. We give out grants every year to help with filmmakers. So, from my perspective, it was as a filmmaker, like you said, we're filmmakers. I still shoot all the time. I saw the way I wanted a rental house experience to be, and so I built my house around that. And being small allows us to be kind of nimble. We have a lot of cool little bespoke things. I have my own little machine shop, so I make little parts. A lot of weird lenses that maybe some of the bigger houses don't have, and we can kind of customize things a little bit. So I think that's the difference that you're saying too, of like the big house, I'll get a show come in and they're like, I need 8 cameras. And I'm like, no, like that's not me. I can do it, but that's not what I serve. I'm not going to give you 8 of exactly the same of every single piece. But if you come in, you're like, I have a 2-camera show for 2 months, and I want 2 Alexa 35s, and I want these lenses, and I want it like that. And I don't know, can you tell me, how do you think I should set this up, and how should we configure it? We'll come in and have a meeting, and we'll actually work out lighting programs. We'll help you build your lighting program. We'll help you build your camera setup, like those kind of things. So, yeah.
So, thank you. Two different perspectives from like-minded individuals running 2 very different scaled rental houses. But the core message between both of what Eric and what we do at Adorama Rental is the same. We're in the services and facilitations business. We want to make sure that so are we DPs, producers, ACs, sort of run the whole gamut. So it's interesting, the relationship of the dynamic of a relationship with the rental house really historically was the cinematographer and the rental house, or the camera assistant and the rental house. And you look at, the legacy incumbents in the rental industry, someone like Panavision, who I think is a tremendous company. And, they've built their legacy on being that bespoke creator behind the scenes. So, but, that's at the level of a Roger Deakins, and that's great. But, the idea between what we do at our respective camera houses is we want to create that same dynamic for the non-Roger Deakins. We want you guys to come in, you people to come in and feel very welcome and very open to ask questions, open to collaborate on solutions. And, there's no better feeling than a fresh-eyed, wide-eyed filmmaker coming in and, they've got their first paying job, or they're putting something together with their own finances, and they need a little help. And that's where I think we both really excel and thrive. And I think more than anything, developing that relationship in film school or in school and taking it out beyond that is so important, because as a rental house, that's where we look for the next wave of talent. And from a perspective of these are the people we want to help cultivate, not this is the next, person who's going to pay the bills. Yes, we're both in the business to make money, of course, but I think as filmmakers, we want to make money in a way that's collaborative and rewarding.
To speak to what you're saying, to expand on that, is that I think one of the things we've seen a lot, I came up from the internet renting gear, right? And now we see that you can go on the internet, share grid, kit split, whatever your deal, and you can rent gear from anybody. The thing you touched on is building a relationship. The one thing I've learned from coming from that and now having a full company is building a relationship with your rental house is really key, because you can get gear from anyone, but knowing that we're going to be able to help you with your budget on this one, look, dude, I just don't have the budget. We can help you with that. If you're just always chasing the cheapest rental, you're going to wind up having problems on sets. What we see all the time, I'd say every weekend I get a phone call. Someone's like, oh, I got this camera from this dude and it stopped working and the monitor. And you're like, well, yeah, the guy gave it to you in a backpack. So I think the one takeaway I try to impart on everybody is not to put down the little guys, because that's how I started too, but also know that if you're in a high pressure shoot and you've got your clients over your back, build relationships with rental houses, because we will work with you on budgets and we will work with you on your shoots to help, because we want to see you get done too. We want to see you get your shoot and get your shot, and we understand that everybody has a budget to work with. Obviously, sometimes we can't go as low as some people because we got to put a roof over our heads too. But I think that idea of building a relationship, and once you do over a few rentals, we're going to be able to help you more. We're going to be able to reach out, get gear that maybe I don't have in stock to help you out. So those things are really key as you grow your career. And that's how, when you see the big DPs, they've been working with one rental house for decades, just building that relationship. And I know that for me coming up, that was important. That really set me on my career path and gave me a lot of insight, because I've had a few people who really kind of took me in and okay, cool. Well, this is what you should use, or you should set it up like this. And that's really helped me in my career.
That's great. And an interesting dynamic that has started to evolve in the last 5 or 6 years is the relationships between the rental house is extending beyond that, between the rental house and the camera team. I talk to as many, if not more, producers now than I do cinematographers. And the producers are they're smarter. They're hip to the gear. They understand, it's not about the bottom line and the numbers. And to touch on what you said, which is so important, is you've got a shoot that is a pressure cooker. There are so many things that can go wrong, that can happen, that need to be dialed in perfectly. Why would you trust a camera in a backpack? The core, and again, that's not to say that's not a viable path forward for some projects, but I think if you're on your first show as a DP or a producer, or you're putting something together that's a passion project, you really got to look at your relationships with all of your vendors and say, is this putting me in a position to succeed? Yeah, they may cost a little bit more, but I'm getting the security in the service and the vendor's platform, whether that's equipment or as a service, that I know I'm not going to get if I just kind of Craigslist it with something, a little bit more, a couple of bucks cheaper. And nowhere is that more important than your equipment. Because when you're dealing with cameras like the Sony Venice, the Arri Alexa 35, the Alexa Mini, and all of the lenses that go with those, and then the next tier, the FX9s and the Canon C500s, you've got all sorts of calibration that has to happen just to get that equipment ready to get into your hands. Yeah, somebody may own an Alexa 35, but do they have the proper tools to back focus it and to shim it and to make sure that the back focus is where you need it to be, so that when your DP is on set and the AC is putting a lens on and it's not taping out properly.
I mean, how often have you gotten on a shoot and your AC is like, dude, I can't find infinity. I can't focus the camera. Oh, because the mount that's on your FX9 can't be back focused. So, this is, again, something I learned as a guy who started with one camera, and now I have 60-some cameras in-house, is get the right service equipment to support those cameras, so that when you get it, I know it's going to focus, you're going to hit your marks. All those things are actually really important. And I think in a bigger scale, it just makes even the big cameras, but even the small ones. I mean, an Ursa Mini Pro still needs to have its shims checked and that calibrated before you go out. And these are things that a lot of these, like our house, we do really well. We have a full in-house lens service department. Like I actually service lenses in-house because we want to see them consistent for our customers. And that's with, a company of 7 employees. So it's something we try, like I know is something that's super key. And I've invested the time and the education to be able to provide that as a service. And I think that's really important. A lot of people maybe forget that now with gear becoming such a commodity, and kind of like, I would say most of what we do has become a lot of prosumer now. The line between consumer and pro has really been blurred in a lot of the gear that we rent. And so having people who know that gear and can help you with it is important. To go back to something earlier, you were talking about the experience. When I was a kid, right, I was the kid that hung out at the skate shop, on the couch, like watching skate videos and everything in the 80s and 90s. And so I wanted to create a rental house that had the same kind of environment. So like we have a coffee shop in the front of like a full-on open to the public coffee shop. And we'll sit around with filmmakers in the evenings and drink coffee and talk film. And like, I love being able to build an environment that welcomes in filmmakers and creators of all kinds. And that's something that, again, I think we've seen change a lot. It used to be go to your rental house, get gear, push it away. Now it's becoming like, for us, it's a community center. Like we have customers who just stop by to hang out and it's kind of fun. And I really enjoy that. It's a place for people to come together. I think that's something that we can all sort of strive to with our rental houses and make it more than just that single business transaction.
See, and I was impressed with our espresso machine, but he's got the coffee shop. That's great. And it's the sense of community. It's, Eric mentioned education. I mean, if you're a rental house and you're not making it a priority to educate, you're in the wrong business. The days of pushing carts out in a warehouse style, it's just not going to fly. I mean, when I started, prior to working in the rental house when I was in production, there were 2 cameras, and it was Arri and Panavision film cameras. Yeah, and if you went to a boutique house, you had Aton, the old cat on the shoulder, and the place I had worked prior was actually one of the biggest Aton houses in the U.S. And the level of dedication and sort of almost cult-like following when it was just those 2 cameras plus the third was pretty exciting. But now, man, there's the level of the width of professional tools, that the line between what is a consumer tool and a professional tool, I don't even know where it is anymore. I mean, just look around. You've got these PTZ cameras that are shooting 5 years ago, you couldn't do this like this. It would be, a Panasonic or a Sony, camera up there. But now these guys are controlling these very inexpensive and powerful PTZ cameras from the room behind me, and it's great. It's great. And I think
we look at, speaking of that, like you look at what we have in our inventories, right? So I remember, right, buying my first 35 millimeter film camera, and I think I spent 250 some thousand on that, right? And then all of the equipment that goes along with it. And now, sure, you can still buy an Arri at 115,000, like I just did, but you can get, an FX6, right? Phenomenal camera for $5,000. You can buy it from Adorama, plug, which I do. But like you said, the level of available equipment. But then, what does that mean for you guys as creators and working with rental houses? You now have 50 some cameras to choose from. So, what camera do I shoot my job with? Okay, well, call me up. Hey, I'm doing a commercial, right? I need to deliver in 4 formats. I need 4:3, 6:5, 6 formats, 16:9, 9:16, and 1:1. What camera would I use? Well, you don't want to use an FX6 because we're not going to be able to extract enough image from a single camera. So maybe you should think about something 8K like a Raptor or a Monstra so you don't have to turn your camera sideways. And we'll actually provide you with the image masks to be able to do that. So I think that's, again, what the power of rental houses is, that we can help you make those decisions in this really crowded environment. Because I know as a filmmaker, it's overwhelming for me. Like, I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, there's so much out there to work with. And I think that's where, use us as a resource, because you're not going to, it's hard for the manufacturers to field your phone calls anymore. We know this, like call support for anybody. You're not going to get through. But that's fallen on us now a lot. I think we can both agree on that.
Absolutely. Yep.
I think we both probably have departments now that kind of like will help you out. Like you call my tech line, we're going to answer those questions for you. So it's something to think about as you're planning your jobs is use us as a resource,
What a great note to end on. So thank you very much for coming. We'll stick around. We don't have an official Q&A built in, so we'll just stick around and hang out here. But thank you very much for coming. And remember, there's a TikTok branded camera out there that shoots native 9:16 format. It's going to put us all out of... No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Thank you very much, guys.